IB Bio, Ecology and Conservation, Option C, Part 4, looks at biomes, succession, and disturbance. The essential idea is changes in community structure affect and are affected by organisms. Here is the outline for the IB Bio, Ecology, Conservation, Option C movies. Use this outline to find the part that you need. This movie has its focus here. Here is a definition of a biome, or maybe better yet, a description of what a biome is. Regions of the earth inhabited by certain types of life, especially vegetation, a collection of ecosystems sharing similar climatic conditions. A biome is a collection of ecosystems sharing similar climatic conditions. The distribution of species is affected by limiting factors, particularly rainfall, temperature, and light. And these limiting factors vary across the globe according to latitude lines. In this diagram, we can see the latitude lines. The world's large biomes occur due to climatic conditions determined by their position on Earth, determined by their latitude. Here is a diagram displaying the distribution of the world's biomes, and you can see the close relationship to latitude. The latitude lines can be seen. Here's the equator. Here's 30 degrees north, 30 degrees south. The poles are 90 degrees north and 90 degrees south. Now notice equatorial forests are dark green and are generally located in large patches along the equator. Deserts, in yellow, are located in large patches approximately 30 degrees north and 30 degrees south of the equator. Taiga, or the boreal forest, in light blue, is across northern reaches of Canada, Scandinavia, and Russia. Tundra, in darker blue, across the polar regions of the world. Now, as a note, something to keep in mind, notice that not all equatorial regions have forest. Here, for example, or notice that deserts are not uniformly located at 30 degrees north or 30 degrees south of the equator. Local geographic conditions strongly influence the presence or absence of certain biomes. Proximity to the ocean or the presence of mountain ranges strongly influence local climate. I'll address this idea in the next movie. Biomes, as a collection of ecosystems sharing similar climatic conditions, are best understood to be determined by the limiting factors of precipitation and temperature. These two abiotic influences are most important. Warm and wet conditions result in tropical forests. Dry conditions result in deserts at any latitude. Cold, wet conditions results in the coniferous forest known as the taiga biome. Extreme cold, in combination with low light conditions on a yearly basis, results in tundra. The presence of mountains strongly influences local climate because when air is pushed up and over a mountain, air rises, cools, resulting in the condensation of water vapor. This causes high rainfall on the windward side of the range. As the air goes over the range, it is cold and dry and begins to sink. This results in clear skies or dry conditions on the leeward side. We would say that there's a rain shadow on the leeward side of the mountain range. Once again, mountains strongly influence local climate regardless of latitude for a few reasons. At altitude, temperatures are cold. Air cools as it rises over the range, resulting in the condensation of water vapor. This results in rainfall on the windward side. As the dry, cold air goes over the range, the air sinks, resulting in dry conditions on the leeward side. This is a rain shadow on the leeward side of the range. Here is the next relevant IB syllabus statement. Analyze climographs that display the relationship between temperature and rainfall in specific ecosystems. Here is a climograph that shows the location of biomes based on temperature and precipitation. Let's start with deserts. Deserts are located in regions with low precipitation, but experience a wide range of temperatures. Tropical forests are located in regions with warm temperatures, but tropical forests vary with respect to the amount of rainfall that they receive. Notice that the tundra is located in regions with cold temperatures and low rainfall. The boreal forest, the taiga, generally has lower temperatures than the temperate deciduous forest biome, but both biomes receive a wide range of precipitation. The taiga, by the way, is located approximately 60 degrees north of the equator, while the temperate forest is located approximately 40 degrees north. The relative difference in temperature, as can be seen in this climograph, can be explained by the difference in latitude. Here's another climograph that displays biomes according to precipitation and temperature, and these are the two most important factors in determining local climate. Now, temperature is along the x-axis, while precipitation is along the y-axis. It's important that you read your axes carefully. For example, look at this axis and read it carefully for its interesting orientation. Now, the tropical forest biome seen here is located in regions that receive high precipitation and are generally warm. The tundra and desert biomes are located in regions that receive low precipitation. The tundra biome is located in regions with low average temperatures, while the desert generally experiences warmer temperatures. Notice that grasslands, steppes, and savannas generally are located in regions with low average rainfall. Here is one last climograph. Stop the movie now to study it and make sense of it. I'll let you study this slide more on your own. Precipitation and temperature are the two most important limiting abiotic factors that influence local climate. As a result, some biomes, such as the tropical forest, is more productive than others. To compare biome productivity, we must use this middle column that displays net primary productivity in grams per meter squared per year. Comparing biome productivity can only be done on a unit area basis. Rainforests are very productive because of warm, wet conditions. Deserts are unproductive because of the lack of precipitation. Temperate forests have an intermediate level of productivity between that of deserts and that of rainforests. So here's an IB syllabus statement that should simply fit into the argument that I've been making here. The type of stable system that will emerge in an area is predictable based on climate. Precipitation and temperature are the two most important abiotic factors, limiting abiotic factors, influencing local climate. Let's shift our focus to succession, which is a progressive change in communities over time in a given location. When new earth becomes available, whether through volcanic action, sand dune formation, mudslides, or the retreat of glaciers, life will appear, and this is known as primary succession. With time, the community will proceed through a series of stages, with one community giving way to the next. This is known as succession, and the type of system that will emerge in an area at a latitude is predictable based on climate. Primary succession begins from bare rock or sand, never having experienced any life prior. And in this image, you can see the progressive change in the community over time in a given location. This is succession. Change in a single location over time. Time is shown along the x-axis. Primary succession starts with newly exposed earth, whether that comes from volcanic eruptions, mudslides, the formation of dunes, or the retreat of glaciers. And in this diagram, I've indicated the change in the community over time from the colonizing species like lichens and algae to the mosses and grasses to the shrubs and to the trees, which are late successional species. This image displays change in the community in a location through successional time This image displays succession, beginning with the pioneer species to the intermediate species, such as small shrubs, to the climax species, late in succession. Here are the IB syllabus statements of relevance. Define succession, particularly primary succession. Describe succession in a location, and analyze data showing primary succession. Let's take a look at some data here, and I'll have you work on a DBQ in class related to this syllabus statement. This is a kite diagram showing primary succession following a volcanic eruption. These bars represent the presence of different species, a relative measure of abundance of different species seen here along the y-axis. In the first 2 to 3 years, no life was present, and this would be typical of primary succession. Then the colonizers arrive, and as they arrive, they begin to change the abiotic conditions, light, water availability, and soil nutrients, and this sets the stage for the arrival of the mid-successional species, and some colonizers disappear entirely. Further change in the abiotic factors occur, less light, more developed soils, and this sets the stage for the late successional species. Some say the climax species. The late successional species, as long-lived species, represent the community late in succession. This diagram nicely displays succession. The bare earth stage, following, say, the retreat of a glacier or a disturbance such as fire or flood, is seen here and graphically here. Then the mosses and grasses come in as the bare earth retreats. These are the colonizers. They arrive, they change the abiotic conditions of light availability, water availability, soil nutrients, setting the stage for the next community. The perennials arrive, further changing the abiotic conditions, and then ushering in the late successional species. Notice at the bottom we can see biodiversity and biomass and the soil layer increasing through succession. Gross primary productivity, GPP, is the total photosynthetic output, the transformation of carbon dioxide into organic matter. Over successional time, total photosynthetic production increases and then levels as trees reach their maximum size. Biomass increases through succession, then levels as trees reach their maximum size. This image of succession makes apparent the change in biomass over successional time. Diversity increases and then levels over successional time as the layers of the forest increase from the floor to the substory to the canopy. New niches appear, allowing for greater numbers of different species. Primary succession begins with bare rock and proceeds to the pioneer community and then on to the climax community, until disturbance sets in motion secondary succession as the community is returned to an earlier stage. These processes are ongoing in nature. Rainforests are stable climax systems, mature systems at the end of succession. Rainforests are located in tropical regions, predictable, based on rainfall and temperature regimes. The world's great deserts are located 30 degrees north or south of the equator. The type of stable system that will emerge in an area is predictable based on climate. Grasslands tend to be located in regions with lower than average rainfall, but grasslands can experience wide ranges of temperature. The type of stable system that will emerge in an area is predictable based on climate. The boreal forest, also known as the taiga, experiences cold temperatures on average with high rainfall. Boreal forests can be found approximately 60 degrees north of the equator. The tundra experiences low temperatures and low rainfall. This is a photo I took at 78 degrees north latitude, just 12 degrees south of the North Pole. My family can be seen in the distance. Do you see any polar bears? They are around. Here is the IB syllabus statement that I've been following, but remember that I've integrated the concept of succession here, as a progressive, predictable change in the community over time, starting from newly exposed earth following volcanic eruptions or the retreat of glaciers or newly exposed sand dunes. Remember, the type of stable system that will emerge through succession in an area is predictable based on climate. With a theme of biomes providing the thread that holds this movie together, let's shift the focus to examine the magnitude of nutrient storages in 3 different biomes: rainforests, taiga, and desert. As we step toward nutrient storages in biomes, remember that matter cycles within closed systems. In a rainforest, most of the nutrients are locked up in the tissues of big trees that hold those nutrients for many, many years. Any leaf litter on the forest floor rapidly decomposes so that there is very little litter on the floor. And as nutrients become locked up in the tall trees, there is also very little nutrition in the soil. In a boreal forest, the taiga, most of the nutrients reside in the leaf litter. The needles of the conifers create acidic conditions in the uppermost soil layers. The low pH inhibits decomposition. The trees of the taiga and the soil have medium-low amounts of nutrients. In the desert, most of the nutrients would be in the soil because there is sparse vegetation and, as a direct result, very little leaf litter. So here's the IB syllabus statement of relevance to the last 3 slides. Construct Gersmehl diagrams to show the interrelationships between nutrient stores and flows in the following biomes: taiga, desert, and tropical rainforest. Here's the general Gersmehl diagram. The storages are shown as circles, and their relative size displays the relative magnitude of each storage. The flows are shown as arrows, and their size indicates the magnitude of the flow. The storage of nutrients in the soil would be inorganic nutrients. This storage does not represent carbon available to plants. Plants take up their carbon from the air in the form of carbon dioxide. The storage of nutrients in the litter would be the organic matter in or on the soil, including leaf litter and humus. Humus is partially decomposed organic matter. And lastly, the storage of nutrients in the biomass would be the total dry mass of the living organisms, plants mostly, per unit area. Nutrient inputs into the system include rainfall, nutrients dissolved in raindrops, and nutrients arriving from the weathering of parent rock. Remember that carbon, as carbon dioxide, comes into the living system from photosynthesis, and this adds mass to the system. Nutrient outputs include nutrients lost through surface runoff in streams and rivers, and nutrients lost through leaching. Leaching is the loss of nutrients deep into the soil, out of reach of plant roots. We also have biomass losing organic material, such as leaf drop. This is called littering. Decomposition is a word with which you should be familiar, and the uptake of nutrients by plants from the soil is called plant uptake. Remember, this uptake does not include carbon as carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide comes in from the air. Here is the slide that you will want to spend some time studying. In the taiga biome, the litter nutrient storage is the largest storage, with conifer needles making up the large proportion of organic matter as litter. Nutrient cycling is generally slow due to cold temperatures. In the desert biome, the nutrient storage in the soil is the largest. Nutrient flows are generally slow due to the scarcity of organisms given the dry conditions. In the rainforest biome, the largest store of nutrients is found in the living organisms, plants mostly. The rate of nutrient cycling is fast due to the warm, wet conditions. The soil is nutrient poor as a result of the rapid uptake of nutrients by the plants. Here's a chance to practice your understanding of Gersmehl diagrams for the taiga, the desert, and the rainforest. Turn the movie off now and respond to the questions that I've posed here. Here is another Gershmiel diagram of the rainforest. Notice the largest storage of nutrients is found in the living organisms as the biomass of plants, mostly. The rate of nutrient cycling is fast due to the warm, wet conditions. The soil is nutrient poor as a result of the rapid uptake of nutrients by the plants, nutrients that get locked up inside the plants for many, many years. This diagram includes a flow called harvest. The loss of biomass due to human harvest is important to consider and leads us to the next section of the movie. So here's the next IB syllabus statement. Describe one example of how humans interfere with nutrient cycling. Deforestation removes the largest storage of nutrients in the forest. Thus, the soil is nutrient poor. Without the trees, atmospheric carbon dioxide is increased because there are no longer plants removing CO2 from the air. Burning the biomass of a system, as can be seen here, increases atmospheric carbon dioxide. Certain nutrients, nitrogen and phosphorus, are added to the soil upon burning, but the quantities of soil nutrients are not long-lasting following the burn. Deforestation removes the largest storage of nutrients in the forest. The soil becomes nutrient poor. Without the trees, atmospheric carbon dioxide is increased. Deforestation and burning the forest increase atmospheric carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is released upon burning, and without trees, less carbon dioxide is removed from the atmosphere through photosynthesis, so this flow is reduced. This cycle, shown in the diagram, is interrupted here when the trees are removed. Atmospheric levels of carbon dioxide increase when we deforest and burn. The combustion of fossil fuels adds carbon dioxide to the atmosphere. The world of humans combusts 85 million barrels of oil per day. Carbon dioxide is added to the atmosphere by tons every day. In this diagram of the carbon cycle, you can see how deforestation adds carbon dioxide to the atmosphere, and the combustion of fossil fuels adds carbon dioxide to the atmosphere. Agriculture is a human activity that typically interferes with nutrient cycles. Consider the following agricultural practices that would impact nutrient cycles. Regular plowing, growing a single crop, a monoculture with no biological diversity, and adding nitrogen fertilizers to the soil. Here is an image of a palm plantation in Malaysia. Imagine the difference between this system and the original rainforest ecosystem. This is a monoculture from which a product is harvested. If the original system were intact, a diverse set of species would take up different nutrients and leave varied nutrients as litter. A monoculture such as this one accelerates the process of producing nutrient-poor soils as a single species takes up specific nutrients, and then many nutrients are removed from the system as a product is moved to markets many, many kilometers away. Then fertilizers become essential, further exacerbating interference with nutrient cycles. Here is a diagram of the nitrogen cycle. Humans interfere with the nitrogen cycle by adding fertilizers and removing crops for distant markets. Here are images of farmers adding chemical fertilizers to their fields, nitrates, ammonia, and urea. The addition of fertilizers to farmland, especially the over-fertilizing of farmland, results in eutrophication. Fertilizers, particularly nitrogen and phosphorus, run off into local waterways, streams, rivers, lakes, and ocean. The fertilizers stimulate a bloom of algae, which initiates a cascade of events, including the decomposition of the dead algae that results in the death of larger organisms like fish. Here you can see eutrophication in Florida. Nutrients in excess run off the land, causing an algal bloom that initiates a cascade of events resulting in fish death. Here is eutrophication in Lake Maracaibo in Venezuela. You can see the algal bloom at the edges of the lake due to excess nitrogen fertilizers applied to neighboring farm fields that ultimately washes off into the lake. Eutrophication proceeds as follows. There's an increase in nitrates and phosphates in the waterways of the world. There's a rapid growth of algae, the accumulation of dead organic matter as the algae die. There's a high rate of bacterial decomposition of the algae that reduces oxygen levels, and this causes the death of fish. Eutrophication is a disturbance, evidence of pollution. And that brings us to the next IB syllabus statements. Disturbance influences the structure and rate of change within ecosystems. And by which method would you investigate the effect of an environmental disturbance on an ecosystem? Plowing, and plowing regularly, is a disturbance to an ecosystem. Imagine the ecosystem that existed before the plow. The structure of the native ecosystem would be vastly different than the structure of the plowed landscape. The structure of the system is changed dramatically with deforestation. The climax, late successional species are removed, and in turn, early successional species arrive. The rate of growth following the disturbance tends to be rapid. It's important to remember succession when we examine the impact of disturbance. Disturbance tends to take an ecosystem back to an early stage of succession. In this diagram, you can immediately see the difference in structure between an undisturbed late successional mature forest and the early successional stage following disturbance. As well, the rate of growth early in succession is rapid relative to the growth late in succession. Fires change the structure of grasslands, but grasslands bounce back from disturbance with rapid change in the rate of growth following the fire. Deforestation changes the structure of forest systems, and forest systems do not bounce back quickly from disturbance, and in fact may never return to its original state. Biodiversity may be lost. If you were to investigate the effect of an environmental disturbance, such as deforestation, you could use transects with quadrats, measuring the abundance of species and changes in species composition with many randomly located transects before and after deforestation would provide meaningful data on the impact of disturbance. Here's an image that shows the extent of the Horizon deepwater oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico in 2010. The area in white indicates the area impacted by the oil. Imagine the change in biodiversity of the marine system due to the spill. Now, if you were to investigate the effect of an environmental disturbance such as an oil spill, you could use transects with quadrats measuring the abundance of species and changes in species composition with many randomly located transects along the gradient of the spill from the center to the outer edge would provide meaningful data on the impact of disturbance. This is an oil pipeline carrying warm oil across the tundra in Alaska. Notice the changed landscape in the vicinity of the pipeline. This is a disturbance. Measuring the abundance of species and change in species composition with many randomly located transects along the gradient from close to the pipeline to far from the pipeline would provide meaningful data on the impact of disturbance caused by the pipeline. Road building, as can be seen in these images, results in severe disturbance to ecosystems because roads bring people, and with people comes agriculture or mines or deforestation. Over the last dozen slides or so, I've been examining these IB syllabus statements. Disturbance influences the structure and rate of change within ecosystems. Investigate the effect of an environmental disturbance on an ecosystem. And that brings us to the end of IB Bio Ecology Conservation Option C, Part 4.